Good evening to our viewers in Korea and hello to others watching from around the world. Welcome to Within the Frame. I'm Handan in Seoul. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is making an official visit to the United States this week. The highlight of the visit will be his summit with President Joe Biden, where the two are expected to discuss a major military upgrade of their 70-year defense alliance. Why does the defense shakeup come now, and how would it impact South Korea? For some insights, we turn to Kim Yang-gyu, principal researcher at the East Asia Institute, who joins us via Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Also with us tonight is VOA Correspondent Jessica Stone. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Good evening.
Dr. Kim, let's start with you. The U.S. Japan summit will take place amid heightened geopolitical tensions and rapidly evolving security dynamics in Asia and Europe. First, let's explore the significance of the meeting itself.
Right. First of all, it is the first official visit by a Japanese leader since Prime Minister Abe in 2015. And according to the White House, this is going to be an official visit. And there are different categories of visits, such as working visit, official working visit, state visit, and etc. And each comes with different set packages of activities. And you might ask, well, how the official visit is different from President Yoon's state visit in last April. And it is essentially the same. The only different name is because Kishida is not technically the head of the state, but the head of the government. As President Yoon did, however, Prime Minister Kishida will participate in a leaders' summit, state dinner, and will make a congressional remarks and speech. So Kishida will be President Biden's fifth state guest, following India, Australia, South Korea, and France. And I believe we will have a chance to discuss this further, but the agenda also attests to the significance of the meeting. Kishida himself emphasized that the meeting occurs at a historical turning point and will focus on how to restructure U.S. military command in Japan, as you already mentioned, and the modernization of the command and control, which has not been discussed for like 60 more years, will also be a very significant agenda. And it's also significant in terms of domestic politics. And Kishida is struggling with his record low approval rate from 10 to 20% due to the Liberal Democratic Party's fundraising scandal. And he really needs some diplomatic trophies to compensate that. Yet compared to Abe's vision of free and open Indo-Pacific and his project of reinterpreting the Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, Kishida's footprints in Japan's foreign policy directions are relatively smaller than Abe. So I think this is going to be important for him as well to present his foreign policy vision when he makes speech in the U.S. Congress. And also the popular Japanese buzzword these days, Moshitora, or what if Trump wins, indicates that Kishida will probably want to institutionalize the strengthened alliance partnership that he has with President Biden, while Biden still holds the office. So these are a couple of reasons why we think that this meeting is going to be pretty significant.
So the summit comes as the world witnesses spiraling geopolitical tensions, from Russia's aggression in Ukraine to the widened conflict in the Middle East, and also the growing threats in Northeast Asia as well. So the world will watch closely on the summit outcome. Now, Jessica, Dr. Kim has touched upon some of the very important points to look for during the summit, but give us more details of the wide range of topics that will be discussed during the Biden-Kishida summit.
Well, Dr. Kim is absolutely right that the main focus will be on defense, but it comes in a couple of trajectories. Not only the increase in interoperability between these two militaries. Of course, Washington has 50,000 forces in Japan. Tokyo is going to restructure its military infrastructure and its command and control by March 2025, and that's going to make it easier for these two militaries to work together. There's also going to be a discussion during these meetings this week on maintaining U.S. vessels in the Pacific, and that will entail Japan making available private sector partners to use its ports to do that maintenance. That's another conversation that's going to take place. And then the broader concept of technology cooperation. Of course, Japan, like South Korea, has a burgeoning technology sector, a lot of know-how in manufacturing and in AI and in semiconductor chips. They're going to pledge $100 million to develop that sector further and outline an agreement that's going to coordinate the subsidy structure and the export control structure between the U.S. and Japan, so that it doesn't penalize those trading partners, but that it penalizes China instead, to avoid an over-reliance in those sectors on China. We also understand that Japan will pledge a moon vehicle during this visit made by Toyota, as well as an astronaut to contribute to the moon program that's going on with NASA in the United States. In the background, though, too, of course, are some trade tensions. You know, Nippon Steel is trying to buy U.S. steel, and it's been a real concern in an election year because, of course, Joe Biden has run on a pro-American American manufacturing platform and continues to do so. He has questioned the sale. He's come out against it, saying that it should remain in U.S. hands, and so that's expected to come up in the topics as well.
So boosting military cooperation, of course, will be the key agenda, and they'll also discuss tech cooperation as well as space cooperation. But I hear that for the very first time, a trilateral summit between Japan, the U.S., as well as the Philippines will take place. And so Kishida's visit is also expected to serve as a platform to boost not only cooperation between Washington and Tokyo, but also with other important U.S. partners in the Indo-Pacific region. So I think the world will be keeping close tabs on that as well. Now, Professor Kim, zooming in on the biggest upgrade in the U.S. and Japan's military alliance since 1960, what specific steps are expected, and why are the longtime allies seeking a historic defense shakeup now?
I think Jessica just briefly summarized the main topics that we'll discuss, but let me elaborate a little more on what's happening in command and control system. So this issue has been discussed actually since 2022, when Kishida cabinet announced Japan's national security and national defense strategies. And the most important change Tokyo has made through this strategic document is to enhance Japan's own defense capacity, including increasing defense spending to 2% GDP and acquiring counter-strike capabilities like Tomahawk cruise missiles. And this has kick-started a serious discussion about how to upgrade the U.S.-Japan military alliance. So I believe we will see the result of the one-year-plus discussion between Washington and Tokyo tomorrow. The U.S. forces Japan, USFJ, is not like USFA. It lacks any integrated and joint operational commander, and mainly serves as a platform for military operations across the region. And it is true that Japan hosts 54,000 U.S. troops, U.S. Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Army, and hundreds of U.S. aircraft, and only 4 deployed aircraft carrier strike group, USS Ronald Reagan. And these are the most powerful U.S. military assets in the Pacific. However, the 3-star USFJ commander has little command and control authority over these assets, and he has to report to his headquarters in Hawaii, which is a U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, dealing with 19-hour time difference. But now Japan tries to upgrade its military capability with offensive assets and make an effort to establish Japan Joint Operation Command by 2024, as just mentioned, to direct all self-defense forces joint operations. So Tokyo is taking similar steps the Pentagon is taking under the new strategic concept of integrated deterrence. And these are the absolutely welcome development for Washington, as the Biden administration has been focusing on building globalized network. So I think this, finishing the final puzzle of, U.S., Korea, Japan trilateral security cooperation is really the point that is making changes. Of course, we have to wait and see how significant changes will be made tomorrow and how the Washington and Tokyo implement those changes and decisions. But with the enhanced command and control structure in USFJ, I think it would significantly increase the credibility of U.S. extended deterrence posture and defense capabilities. So I think it's going to provide a very powerful tool to address military challenges coming from North Korea and China.
So some of the detailed steps will include, of course, raising the interoperability of U.S. and Japanese forces, and also restructuring and strengthening U.S. forces command in Japan. And also, as you've highlighted, Professor Kim, giving greater authority to military commands in Tokyo, because right now the Pacific Command has greater authority in Hawaii, which is 19 hours behind Tokyo, right? And all this is, of course, aimed at countering threats from China, as well as growing threats from North Korea and its growing ties with Russia. Now, Jessica, taking a deeper look into the military upgrade, the two allies are set to discuss the launch of a new project for the joint production of defense equipment, according to U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell. He also alluded to technical cooperation between Japan and AUKUS, Australia, U.S., U.K. Security Pact. What have you learned so far about this?
Well, we certainly don't have a lot of details yet, but we did get a hint that this was coming last week when Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell, who, remember, used to be at the National Security Council, used to be basically the lead author of the Indo-Pacific policy for this administration. He has long had desires to strengthen the relationship between the United States and Australia and the regional partners there. You see him there in the video. He raised the prospect last week in a public address of additional countries joining Pillar 2 of AUKUS, which is basically the technological cooperation piece of that. And he literally said, I think we'll have something to say about that next week. So a pretty clear signal that we're going to hear more detail this week about that. Just a reminder that Pillar 2, for those of you keeping score at home, is the technological intelligence and defense technology pillar. So this involves things like cooperation on robotics, drones, and hypersonic technology. Again, Japan, a key partner and a key innovator in these areas, and so represents a very strong possibility of bringing a lot to the table with respect to what can be done technologically in the region. This is an area, too, that we've seen with respect to the Indo-Pacific policy from the White House that really demands technological solutions, because this is an enormously huge theater. It is broad. It is mostly the Pacific Ocean, so it requires satellite technology, monitoring, and so much of what's going on is happening in places that are not patrolled by the respective militaries or even the Coast Guards. And so monitoring and surveillance is very key in this whole effort in terms of deterring China, in responding to North Korea's potential nuclear aggressions, and also stemming the flow of military cooperation between Russia and North Korea, all key concerns for both of these countries.
So we'll have to see if the AUKUS will go from AUKUS to JAUKUS. Although the details, not much details have been unveiled yet. We are likely to see Japan's some involvement, at least in the technological level, as you mentioned, the Pillar 2, which is the technological involvement of the Security Pact. Professor Kim, another key watch point is the South Korea, U.S. Japan trilateral security cooperation amid rising threats from North Korea and its growing ties with Russia. Do you expect more progress on this front from where the three countries left off in Camp David last year?
Absolutely. Since the 2023 Camp David summit and the commitments made by President Yoon, Biden, and Kishida to bolster rule-based international order and hold regular trilateral meetings of foreign minister, defense minister, and the national security advisors to closely coordinate trilateral cooperation, the three countries have earnestly implemented the agreement. For example, last December, Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo fully activated a real-time DPRK missile warning data sharing mechanism and jointly established a multi-year trilateral exercise plan. And there have been numerous trilateral exercises, including the most recent one on April 2nd, the trilateral aerial escort flight of U.S. bombers operating in the Indo-Pacific. And on March 29th, the U.S. hosted the second trilateral diplomatic working group meeting on DPRK cyber activities to review the progress they have made and deepen cooperation on information sharing and capacity building. So the three countries' security cooperation, namely multi-domain military exercises, missile defense cooperation, collaboration on countering North Korea's cyber activities, and collaboration on cutting-edge technologies like just Jessica mentioned, such as AI and space sectors, will only intensify, I think, in the coming years.
And staying with you, Dr. Kim, Kishida has been seeking a sweeping defense overhaul since taking office after years of Japan's pacifism. Would the landmark U.S. Japan military upgrade, on top of the country's boosted defense, bolster Japan's role within the Seoul, Washington, Tokyo Trilateral security partnership? And what implications might this hold for security relations between Korea and Japan?
Wow, I think this is the most important question we should ask. What is Japan's role and status in the Trilateral security partnership, and how about South Korea? And we slightly touched upon this issue, and Jessica already mentioned this, but let me just explain a little bit further on the AUKUS thing. So what really grabbed my attention was the Deputy Secretary of State Kirk Campbell's remarks when he had an interview with the Nikkei Business Daily that the U.S. is considering bringing Japan into AUKUS Pillar 2. And AUKUS has two major pillars or main goals. Pillar 1 is very famous, and I think you already heard about this, delivery of nuclear power attack submarine capacity to Australia. But Pillar 2 is relatively less discussed, but it focuses on enhancing joint capabilities and interoperability among the members, especially in the fields of cyber capabilities, AI, quantum technologies, and undersea capabilities. And Washington's de-risking strategy of small yard, high fence clearly demonstrates that these capabilities are the cutting-edge technology-based military capacity, which is a game changer in strategic competition with China. So let's say Biden and Kishida agrees on the modernization of the command and control structure in USFJ, and Japan becomes first ever U.S. non-Western ally to join AUKUS Pillar 2. So AUKUS becomes JOKUS, as just mentioned. And I think the implication of this is pretty clear. Japan strengthens its position as the core of the U.S. alliance system in the Indo-Pacific, along with Australia. And South Korea also initiated the next generation critical and emerging technologies dialogue with the United States following the agreement of U.N.-Biden summit last year. And this covers the issue of semiconductor biotechnology, clean energy, and quantum science, and AI, of course. But the focus of this dialogue is on economic prosperity and supply chain resilience. So I just want to emphasize that we are facing a global security landscape where the seamless integration of national capabilities and rapid response from sensor to shooter is the key to military success, and Japan is striving to excel in this field. And I think we have to make similar steps as well.
So Japan's expanded role is not necessarily worrisome to you for South Korea.
We don't have to worry about it, but I just kind of worries about whether we are falling behind. While there's some competition going on in the alliance system, the U.S. is leading, and while if Japan is on the, become really the linchpin of the alliance network, what is our role and position? So that's the part that I'm worried about.
All right, Jessica, some reports also indicate that President Biden would show support for the North Korea-Japan summit as Prime Minister Kishida seeks to materialize talks with Kim Jong-un. What is Washington's stance on the Pyongyang-Tokyo summit?
Yeah, in fact, even before the report in the Nikkei, VOA reported on March 26th when it asked the State Department about that very question of would there be support from the White House for a potential meeting between Kishida and Kim Jong-un. And we were told, quote, we have been very clear about the importance of dialogue and diplomacy with the DPRK to our VOA Korea service. Last week, Kishida told the Nikkei that a visit to Pyongyang is something he wants to do, quote, as soon as possible. And he's offered to do so without preconditions, which is really a precursor and a necessity on North Korea's part. This would, though, be the first meeting between these two countries in 20 years, if it in fact ever happens. Last month, we got a lot of cold water on this whole idea because Kim Jong-un's sister said that she had been approached, that their administration had been approached by Kishida to have a meeting with Kim Jong-un. But she said there's no chance of a dialogue unless Japan can, quote, make practical political decisions. Of course, it's very uncertain what exactly that means.
Well, this effort, Japan's effort to sit down with Kim Jong-un, comes as amid the Kishida administration's dismal approval rating. So we'll also have to keep close tabs on what North Korea will ask in return for the sit down. Jessica, speculations are high that leaders of South Korea, U.S. and Japan will meet on the sidelines of the NATO summit set to be held in Washington in July. What are you hearing about this?
Well, these reports so far are coming from Kyoto, but it wouldn't be a surprise because remember, the same meeting happened on the sidelines of last year's meetings in Lithuania. The leaders of Tokyo and Washington did meet on those sidelines, and Tokyo's government spokesperson has not yet confirmed the details of the July visit by Kishida to Washington for the NATO summit. But the agenda, according to Kyoto, is also in keeping of what we've been hearing and what we've been discussing this evening: increasing military deterrence against China, North Korea's nuclear ambitions and missile threats, and improving communications with NATO. And this really goes to the movement that's underway by key Indo-Pacific partners like Japan and South Korea for the United States of being more integrated into a NATO-like arrangement with the United States and with NATO itself under the idea, which both Yoon and Kishida have put forward, that there needs to be a stronger connection between foreign policy in Asia and foreign policy in Europe, or we could see what happened with Russia's invasion in Ukraine happening in Asia, primarily the concerns over an invasion of Taiwan by China.
Dr. Kim, meanwhile, South Korea's foreign ministry is making arrangements to materialize the Seoul-Beijing-Tokyo summit soon as the chair nation of the Trilateral summit that has been stalled since 2019. Could the efforts bear fruit this time, and what issues would top the agenda? We are a little pressed on time, so if you could just mention quickly.
Yes, I think that there possibly have a meeting because China is now more eager to have this one. Because China is under pressure to fight the challenge coming from Washington about this de-risking strategy, and I think it will try to stop the rise of more multilateral partnership working collectively to serve U.S. interests against China. But also, the Seoul and Tokyo needs some help from Beijing to deal with the North Korean problem. So I think there will be some meeting possibly. But the problem is, I think that both sides want very different things. So I think probably we'll see the similar things again, like emphasis on the respect for each other's interests, but lacking any significant measures addressing the gaps in their positions, probably.
All right, a rush of very significant, high-profile diplomatic talks ahead. Thank you so much, Professor Kim and Jessica, for sharing your perspectives.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back on Thursday with in-depth analysis on the results of the 22nd general election and its surrounding issues. Keep it tuned to Arirang to get the latest stories on the elections as they develop. Goodbye for now.